What up? We're live. This is SwagCast. I'm the Z Roberts. Follow me on Twitter at the Z Roberts. We got Quentin Haynes here tonight. Quentin317. Follow him on Twitter. The rest of the crew can't be here tonight, but we're gonna go ahead and get our playoff podcast SwagCast thing started. Um, gonna go ahead and jump into a playoff overview of what we got going on here. Uh, Game that we got currently on the Knicks Heat. Really been kind of one-way battle for the most part. Gonna go ahead and get Quentin's thoughts on the game.
Man, it's been tough. The Knicks are shooting, I think, like 52% from the field, and they're down 11. I mean, they were down 10 at one point. I think it was 44-34. And Mari with an amazing dunk brought it back down to 4. And the Knicks do what they usually do. They struggle at the end of halves. And, game one was the same way at the end of the first half. LeBron just went crazy, and it was Dwayne Wade with an emphatic and one play. And, now the Knicks are trailing by double digits coming out into the third quarter.
Yeah, the Knicks really had to play almost perfect to come through and get a victory. Kind of predicted before the series even that Carmelo had to come out and get basically 40 anytime that the Knicks wanted to win. And that was the case last game. Remains to be seen whether or not, they can pull that off and make this a real series. But going forward, we got this next half, maybe a game or two left. What kind of things do you see coming out of this, Quinn?
Well, pretty much, the Knicks are going to have to find a way to get Anthony and Stoudemire the ball, and the other step is you got to get J.R. Smith going. You got to get some three-point shot going. Novak has been absent this whole series because the Heat been able to play efficient defense on the perimeter, and he's not getting the three-point shots. If they can get some more three-point shooting, if they can get Tyson to play some defense and lead that charge, I think the Knicks could at least come close to pulling out this game. I don't think this is a start of a blowout game, but I do think the Knicks are going to need to come out firing and trying to play some defense. It works on both ends. They have to be effective on both ends in order to win today. In order to win tonight's game.
Getting past, even if they win this game, you don't see them getting to a point where they could win another game at home.
I don't see it. I think Game 6 is, if there's a Game 6, is going to be Anthony. Maybe Anthony comes out and the crowd just invigorates him and they have another game like they did in Game 4, but they barely won in Game 4. I think the model they need to try to replicate is that Game 3 model, where they were just down. They were up like 40-29, and that was when the Knicks needed to step on their throats. That was the winnable game. That was the game they should have won, and they didn't win it because Carmelo was cold. If they can kind of get that model again and try to get it to, say, 44-32 or something like that, going into the third quarter, making an ugly game where both teams are trying to get shots, I do think the Knicks can pull out another victory. 7 is tough to see. I would say 6 at the most.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. If they come out here in this second half, play it defensively, knock down some shots, and stay in the game, I think they could make it close. Game 6 would probably be really exciting. Game 7, I'd say, probably going to be a blowout, even if they make it that far. But no way, really. I think that if that doesn't happen, it's right out the gates here in the second half that this game doesn't get out of hand. Who's really been the X factor for this series for you, Q?
The X factor to me has been Mario Chalmers. Even when he's not scoring effectively, he's still someone who can give you defensive effort on the other end, guarding the smaller guys. They even switched him on JR a couple times, and he's been able to hold his own. I think that's something that the Knicks need to try to find in free agency or find in the draft this year. Try to get something. They need somebody who can be effective on the wing, other than Anthony, who I feel like should be in the post. I feel like Anthony and Stoudemire should be on opposite sides of the post area. You can say the wing of the post or the blocks, and I feel like they need somebody who can be effective on the outside, and they don't have that. They were looking for Novak, and the fact that Novak isn't playing well, that's a huge loss for that offense. I think Mario Chalmers has been someone who's been able to provide defensive pressure for everybody. From LeBron, from Anthony to Smith, to Douglas and the Baron. I feel like he's been a real X factor, and Chris Bosh is somebody else who comes to mind. But I really do think it was the role players, and Mario Chalmers has been leading that for
Yeah, I
pretty
agree
much
that
the
I think
entire
that
series.
that I think a lot of people thought that Novak could probably have a bigger impact. I think a little underrated value there was Dwayne Wade's actually been playing defense on him sometimes. He's been able to play off and then get back and recover help on and so Novak's got to fire like basically immediately, perfect catch, clean shot in order to get a good look. So it's really limited a lot of that. My X factor's been network. If you're following him on Twitter, it's been money. uh, Sometimes the games have gotten to the point where it's
Yeah,
not even worth watching. But if you stay following him, you're going to stay laughing during the whole series. Um, we're going to move on to the winner of this series.
yeah.
Going to play Indiana. We had the Indiana Orlando series. Quentin, what were your thoughts on the series, and what are your thoughts going forward?
Pretty much went the way I thought it was gonna go. The only part that scared me and confused me is the fact that Indiana. I feel like Indiana didn't dominate. I felt like Indiana should have came out and rolled Orlando in a couple of these games, and it just looked like Orlando stayed in these games and stayed strong. I think Stan Van Gundy deserves a lot of credit, and if he's fired, I want him as the Knicks coach. I feel like he's a coach that we should appreciate. Dwight Howard has trashed him, Shaq has trashed him, but I feel like he's one of the top 8 coaches in the league. In a league where I think there's only 8 good coaches, so if he is available come this offseason, I do feel like the Clippers or the Knicks should like try to get him into their fold and try to help their franchise by getting one of the top 8 coaches. I just feel like Orlando's role players stepped up. Glenn Davis, showed me something. But Indiana showed me something as well. Is that I feel like this is a stepping stone season. They're gonna have a whole bunch of cap space. I really do feel like it's at the point where we should consider trading Danny Granger. As good as he is, I feel like he's a part of the team of the past. He's someone that represents what they used to be, and that's a team that was a first round type of team. Now I think they need to trade him and figure it out moving forward. But the key part for me is that Indiana showed me that
Yeah,
they're
I'll definitely agree with
good,
that.
they're not great.
If Dwight Howard's there and this is the series that you get, then you're all fine with that. But when you have 7-2 Roy Hibbert, and he's just not out there dominating when they're playing Big Baby Davis, who's 6'7", there's some problems there. Indiana's really not blowing anyone away with how they're playing. They didn't come out with a lot of intensity. They squeaked by a couple times. They had guys like George Hill coming up big on occasion. Um, but like you said, they seem to be kind of in that limbo phase. They're not really a contender, but they're past the phase where they're just kind of getting stuck in the first round. Um, I like the Granger move. I don't know where you go with that, but I do kind of agree that if they can bring in a quality shooting guard, say an Eric Gordon, and then move Paul George to the 3, then Danny Granger kind of becomes expendable. Then you have the ability to pay Hibbert, and then have a little cap space. You have some luxuries to go get a point guard like Steve Nash, something along those lines where you kind of upgrade in different spots instead of having that one guy that part of the old regime. Who's been your X factor from that series there, Q?
Man, my X factor. I don't know, Glenn Davis. I feel like he was the guy who led them. I feel like he was very strong in that win. I think we all laugh at Big Baby, because of his antics in Boston. KG made him cry. He pushed a little kid after making the game winner. So he always been a comedy relief in the league. And then they made the trade for him. He got overpaid, and now you kind of see what he is, what Orlando saw in him, and that's this guy who can like defend down low like pretty decently. Like Roy Hibbert isn't a monster on offense, but he gave Roy Hibbert a little bit of trouble. He rebounded pretty okay in the series, and like he took this series and honestly made it a big series for him. I got to give him
Yeah, I
respect to
definitely
that,
agree
and I
with you.
think he was an
Nick
X
Bailey was
factor in
one
the
of my
series
X
because
factors.
he
He
was
came
somebody who
through.
was pushing this
He was
Indiana
huge in
team.
their win. He took the game-winning shot for the last game. Although I think they kind of probably to Reddick in that situation, but still, he was playing that well that they had the confidence to go with him. I'm going with Darren Collison because he has the highest PER in all of the playoffs so far, and that makes it seem like stats are really overrated because Collison wasn't that great. It just kind of playing against Chris Duhon and Jameer Nelson just kind of set him up to seem really efficient, even though when it comes down to it, I'd probably rather have Mario Chalmers, as my point guard on a championship caliber team than Darren Collison. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll swap to the next series. We
He'll
got
come back down to earth once
Chicago
Wade
and
and James get
Philadelphia.
him.
It's really been kind of interesting. We all assumed it was going to be a blowout. New York fans kind of wishing that they were in Philadelphia's situation, playing against the D Roseless Bulls. Now Noah's out. What's your thoughts on how the series been and where it's going?
I don't know. Like a part of me feels like, because I hate the 76ers, a part of me feels like they could still choke these last two games, and we could see Chicago moving to the second round. Their offense is borderline terrible. They don't have anybody who I feel like I can trust shooting a mid range shot, and that's something that's odd to me. But this Sixer team is just so athletic. They're so defensively talented. They're going to be able to force turnovers. They're going to be able to get in the open court. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Evan Turner. I think he's been okay in this playoff series. You know, the key play, getting those offensive rebounds and putting it back. I want to say game 4, looking very impressive to me. I mean, I think the Sixers are going to advance. I do think this goes 7 though. I do think the Chicago Bulls are going to try their hardest to try to wrap that game up and get that game 6. And I just feel like this Philadelphia team lucked out. And I can't say none, but it's weird seeing a team that got blown out in game 1 that clearly looked like a team on the on the verge of a
Yeah, in the
sweep.
playoffs, there they
Um,
had no
about
chance against the
one
Bulls
game
and D
away
Rose.
from
They
winning
just
a
they
series,
seemed
but
completely out
Philly
of whack.
lucked
They
out. I
hadn't
feel
been
like.
playing well. Now, Rose, they got a little bit of confidence. Evan Turner gets inserted into the starting lineup. He goes off. He's really, really solid, like you were talking about. Turner, I think, is kind of the future of that Philadelphia team. He needs to be the creator type. Holiday stepped up his game. The stats with Holiday playing when Rose is not in the game are absurd, and I think that's really been a big reason for Philadelphia coming in and being able to take that next step. It's almost a confidence level thing. They saw that Rose went out, and they're like, okay, this is our rallying point, and they've really jumped with it since then. You talked about a few guys. Who's your X factor for this series?
Omar Sheik, and I wanted to talk about Omar Sheik a little bit later, but it's just like from what I've seen of him, very active on the defensive end, and that high low game he runs with Gibson and Boozer is like that's something that teams may try to get next season. Like that's something that I feel like is going to be very rare for him, now that he's a pending free agent. I think similar to that Gasol Bynum alley oop, which is like unstoppable. Like I feel like his high low game is like perfect. And when we talk about Ashik a little bit later, like I think that's
My
something
X
that
factor's
teams are
been the
going to
other voice that
value.
are joking
Even if
Noah.
the Bulls do lose the series, I feel like
Philadelphia
he's
came
been an
out, got
X
the second
factor
win,
just for
but
his play.
Chicago
For
looked to be kind of
Philadelphia,
in
I
control
don't
of that
know. I
game
just
until Noah
they
hurt
got
his
lucky.
ankle.
That's all I can
Noah
say.
went down, and that's when Philadelphia really kind of cranked it up a notch, and they were able to pull out that win. Noah wasn't there the next game; they get another win. If Noah can play, he's able to defend, switch. He can guard those athletic type players that Philadelphia is throwing out there attacking the rim with. Ashik can't really do that so well. He protects the rim really well, but it kind of forces Thibs' hand because he's used to having a four-man big rotation. You have Gibson, you have Boozer, you have Noah, and you have Ashik. and that really kind of limits him. He's not going to play Scalabrini very much, and that kind of ups the workload on all those guys who didn't have to do a whole lot. He could limit the minutes. He could send out Gibson, play some hustle time. Boozer, was allowed to be fresh. No matter how much the people on the internet, the Bulls fans, all might hate him. He's still kind of effective, especially against a team like Philadelphia. And then Ashiq has to step up his level another notch. He's forced to play a couple more minutes in a little bit of a role that he's not really familiar with. Then we got the other series. We got Boston and Atlanta, and that's been injury riddled. And the winner of that's going to see either Chicago or Philadelphia. Interested to see in what you think going forward and in the past of this series.
It's odd. It's odd because Al Horford returned and he had a really good game. I think he had I want to say 19 and 11, and it was just that's what's missing. I feel like Joe Johnson is he exposed himself in the past couple of years, but he's really exposing himself in this series. He's played awful at some points. Josh Smith is looking pretty good. I don't know. I feel like that experience on Boston is just going to get them these last couple of games. I feel like Rondo is going to has at least one more triple double in him. I feel like Paul Pierce is going to have another one of these. I have to carry the team games. I feel like Atlanta is a better team. They have the better set of talent. If we did a 1 through 5, I kind of feel like Atlanta has a 3-2 favorite. But you look at Boston and they're it's like workmen. They've been there before. So why wouldn't you take Boston? The Rondo thing late in the game was interesting to me, but you got to remember they were right there.
Yeah,
one shot could have won them that game or at least tied it.
They can be
so
at home,
I'm going to go with, I think Boston has been very
the
interesting because of the injuries and because of Joe Johnson. But I feel like Atlanta still has a chance to come out this series and win the series.
They didn't call the timeout, or they didn't have the timeout to call there. So you kind of understand that Rondo had Horford on him. But still, even if you don't have Doc Rivers calling a timeout, you expect them to have some sort of quick hitter, something to get the ball in a scoring situation there. That's not really what you expect from one of these Boston teams. But Atlanta is matched up with Boston really well at home in the past. So it wouldn't surprise me, if they can steal one, that they can come away with it. But that kind of that Atlanta's shown has seemed to give Boston some problems. When they're not coming out with a lot of energy out of the gate, they're showing a little bit of old legs. Avery Bradley's really been kind of a big factor, but they're taking him out by playing the 2-point guard lineup. Atlanta is. They either play Teague and Heinrich, or they're throwing McGrady, and if they throw McGrady in there, then they're putting him in the post. I'm liking the matchups that Atlanta have shown, but to win the series, I still expect Boston to win. So, going to go ahead and find out who your X factor is here, and going forward, how do you like the winner of this series and the winner of the Chicago-Philadelphia series matchup?
I actually think the winner of this series could be the Eastern Conference Finals representative, and I just when I think the X factor is Paul Pierce. I think Paul Pierce is the only player in this series I feel like who can sway a game, who can win you a game. Maybe Josh Smith is second, but I'm gonna go with Paul Pierce in this situation. I feel like Boston has what it takes to be a pest in this series. I think they can dispatch whoever comes out that second round series pretty easily, because as good as that foursome is for Chicago, I just think the Wings are going to kill them. You don't really need to go into the post and deal with that. And Boston's been one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA anyway, and they still have been able to win games. I think Boston right now, that
I
kind of
like that
show
X
that they're
factor a
the
lot.
old
Pierce, you know,
wily
when he's
vet and
been
try to
big, he's
steal one
big,
of
and
these games.
that
Maybe
knees
like
really seemed to be a
a
problem for him.
92,
My
90
X
kind
factor has
of
been
game,
Al Horford.
and maybe
Came into
that
the series,
maybe
we
that
weren't
pushes
expecting him
them
to
into
play
the
every
second
role,
round
just kind of
and
expected him
pushes
to be
them
a
into a
body up. He didn't
momentum,
really kind of further
upward
injure himself
momentum
coming back
to
too
go
soon.
to the Eastern
And next
Conference
thing you know,
Finals. I
he's
think
really,
Boston's going to win
you
this
know, the star of
series,
the show. He
but I
makes a
think
big
Paul
play
Pierce and I
against one
think
at the
Paul
end of the
Pierce is my
game.
X factor.
Came out, played well, gave them a post presence inside. They're throwing out Collins, and Collins is base eater, gonna grab boards, gonna bang. But if they're able to throw a Horford out there, that's a real viable asset into the post that Boston has to deal with. It takes KG away from being able to trying to just play safety back there and direct the defense. We're going to go ahead and swap it over to the Western Conference. Had OKC and Dallas. Really seemed like it was going to be a tough matchup for Oklahoma City. You know, they'd lost to them last year. Dallas had some new parts, and OKC ended up getting the sweep. Quentin, what are your thoughts about that series and going forward?
I was impressed. I really was because I felt like City was a finals pick that everybody wanted to happen. I just felt like we didn't know if it could happen. You look at Oklahoma City now, James Harden steps up and he balls out. Westbrook and Durant are just playing at these levels that, we've seen them in the regular season. We haven't seen them in the playoffs. You sweep them in four. Now you have this rest. You're going to be able to scout whoever plays. I think it's going to be the Lakers most likely. I was
Yeah, I totally
impressed that
agree.
Oklahoma City went to
I was a little
Dallas,
skeptical when
was
they
in a
had the struggles they
deficit,
did against that
came
last
out
year.
and just
Dirk really just
stomped
kind of
on
annihilated
Dallas's
them
dreams.
when they
I
came
think that's
out
something
and
that's
just
showing
kind
you
of
that this team
they
is
had a
slowly
couple close
getting it.
ones,
This team is
early in the
slowly
series, but that
getting
third game they
better.
really
This
put,
team
they
knows
put it
when
on Dallas,
it's
and then that
time to
fourth game,
it's time to get
James
serious.
Harden
And
closed out that fourth
I don't
quarter
know,
just masterfully.
I
Had everyone
questioned their
involved.
ability to get to
Talk
the
after
finals
contract
earlier.
status.
Now I
People are
kind
going to
of
talk
feel like
about
in
him
the
probably
West, I
later on in
kind
the
of
show.
feel like they're
Uh,
that
but the way that they're
realistic
playing on the
team to make
perimeter,
it
you
there.
have to have three guys that can guard somebody. Ibaka's knocking down shots, blocking shots on the weak side. If Perkins is healthy and is able to battle, bind them down low, able to kind of bully against Gasol, they could be really, really effective going forward. You make it to the Western Conference Finals, and half the battle's over. So we're gonna go ahead and find out who the X factor for the series was for you.
I don't want to say James Harden, so I'll say Serge Ibaka. And I think Serge Ibaka has been a real X factor for them the entire season. They don't have anybody like Kendrick Perkins. I don't like his ability to guard the rim is. I feel like he could do it, but I feel like he's more of a goon. And the fact that Ibaka has been playing well in the offensive game, showing a little bit. He's blocking shots. I think that that's something that Oklahoma City needs. They need him to be active because in the next couple of rounds, you know, quietly nobody's mentioned this. This is where you see if he's worth the, $10 million that we people believe he's worth. You know, it's funny because when the Defensive Player of the Year award came out and everybody saw Ibaka come second, I think we had the same opinion. Like he's not that good defensively. He blocks a lot of shots, but if he can push Oklahoma City to the finals
Yeah,
and
I think
be
you
the
know
real
that
defensive
defensive
piece
player of the
because
year
Westbrook has
award,
taken a
the
step
whole
back
Ibaka talk.
defensively. If he's the
A lot of
real
us guys
defensive
that
guy that we
follow a lot
think,
of the advanced
or
metrics
the perception
really
is,
weren't really impressed
he's
with
he
Ibaka,
has
you
to do
know,
well
preseason.
against, let's
At
just assume
averaging
it's
over
Gasol and
1.5 more a
Duncan
game,
and
he's got an
Splitter
intimidation
and that
factor.
combo in
Dallas was
San
able to get
Antonio.
to the
Like,
rim
this is a
with you
series where
know,
he has
and
to prove himself. James
that was
Harden
a
came
factor.
out
He may
and
not be
proved
the
to us
best
in the
guy to
first
guard
round
Dirk.
that you are worth a
He
max
may get
contract.
lazy
If
and overplay
Ibaka wants
sometimes,
to get
allow
a
some easy
big
buckets. He
contract,
may
I
allow
think he has to
some
prove
offensive
himself in
rebounds
these
because
next
he
two
leaves to
series.
try to help
And
and save
he's
the
my
balls.
X factor moving
But
forward for Oklahoma City
he's still a
and in
force
this
inside
series
that
against
you have to
Dallas.
deal with. So I really like Ibaka as a factor there. If they see San Antonio later on, you know, Splitters had some issues against really athletic bigs, so that could be a huge factor. But my X factor has been the free T-shirts. That's been key. You show up to Oklahoma and you have the blue out and Dallas is wearing blue, and then you show up for the first game in Oklahoma City and they have a blue out and Oklahoma City's wearing blue. I think it's really got the teams going, and that's really been a factor in the games. Probably not, but whatever. The others the other series that's been a sweep was the Utah San Antonio series. We'll go ahead and jump to that one, and we'll work back against the future matchups here in a second. But that one was also a sweep. San Antonio came out and put their old man status. They said, we're not taking none of this from you young guys. We're gonna come out here, take care of business, and get our rest. What do you think about that series?
Dismantling. I feel like San Antonio just came in there and the intimidation factor just ripped Utah apart. I mean, other than that last game where it was getting close near the end, I don't think I saw a minute of basketball time in San Antonio that was close. You know, I feel like the Spurs. I don't know. I kind of didn't believe in the Spurs because because they lost in the first round last year to Memphis, and I understood it was an excellent matchup for Memphis. I just felt like it was the Spurs' time to go, and I felt like they were going to do the classic first round. Win a whole bunch of games in the regular season, and then lose in the second round or lose in the first round. And I just feel like this team has the right collection of players up and down the roster where I really can't see who's beating them in the West. Like, I would have to talk myself into somebody beat Atlanta when
Definitely, I
they
love this
when they
Utah
just got
core.
Horford and they had
Dirk,
Johnson and they got
Hayward,
Smith. I feel like
Favors,
they're a
Cantor.
team
That's
that's going to
four
be
guys
talked about
that
in the West a lot
throw
more in
into
the
my
next
future
coming
rotation any day.
seasons,
I
especially
think
because a
they
lot of
really
these
want
Western
something to
teams are
happen in the lottery, and Golden State would
borderline
fall
at
back
best, and
one
they
pick
have
so that
somebody
they
like
have the
a
eighth pick in the draft.
Favors. You
I think there
have
could be a guy there to help them out,
Cantor,
either a
you
Ken
have
Marshall, Damian
Millsap,
Lillard,
and
Harrison
Jefferson. One of
Barnes
them
might
has
fall
to
that far.
go. I
Guy
like
that could
Gordon
really help them
Hayward.
out. But
You need a
Favors was
point
huge.
guard. You're gonna
He
have
looks
all this cap
phenomenal.
space. I feel like
Plays
Utah is
defense
one of these teams
terrifically.
that's gonna
He
make
tries to
a
dunk on
couple of
everyone.
moves
He
in the
really
next two or
improves
three
in bounds.
seasons, and we're gonna be talking
Hayward
about
looked
Utah as a
solid at
4 or
times
5
during the
seed.
series. At times he
And
didn't,
I
of course,
just think that
easily.
you go into this
So
playoff
it's
series,
not
you're the
easy to
eighth
look really
seed,
good against
you win
him.
on the last day to
Damari
make
Carroll
it,
played some
you
solid
get
defense.
punished by the
That last
Spurs. I think
game
that
there
only
against Tony
helps.
Parker helped that
Favors
run.
looked good.
It proved that Paul
Cantor,
Millsap can
when
play
I
some
saw him,
time
he
in the
looked all
three.
right.
Kind of
Those
helped
guys
out
weren't
with
scared.
their log
And I
jam
think that's something
inside.
that's
But San
very
Antonio's
good
just
for
too
their
good. They're
future.
too deep. They run a brilliant system. Splitter's getting a whole lot more minutes. DeJuan Blair's getting more limited time. I mean, I like DeJuan Blair. He plays hard, gets rebounds. He does a lot of things, but at the same time, he doesn't provide enough size. Splitter's done a terrific job this year. Um, they're just I think that even if Memphis gets by, that they're going to be a tough out for basically anybody. So
Steven Jackson. I felt like at times San Antonio got a little too happy passing the ball around the perimeter. And I feel like you can't do that against some of these better teams. I think Steven Jackson is
I
that guy
respect
who's
that,
going
and
to take some of
I'm
those
pretty much
shots.
my
And I
X
feel like
factor
he's been
is
someone
Josh
who
Howard because
quietly
I have
has
loved the Jazz have been great. The
helped
Spurs,
this
I
team
love
get
the extra pass. I mean,
really,
I think that's a
really
big
good.
thing for teams.
And,
Why everyone
after
plays so well for
Parker,
San
after
Antonio is because they
Ginobili, and
make the
maybe
extra
even
pass.
after
I
Duncan,
think
I feel comfortable
since
with him
adding
as your
Steven
fourth
Jackson, they
man
became
on
more
this
trail
team. I
definitely.
think the Spurs made the right trade,
And
giving up a first
but
round pick
Steven
of
Jackson
Richard
still passes.
Jefferson.
Like when he
I
gets to
like
the
the deal
Spurs,
on
he
both
still will make
sides.
the extra pass.
You
Yes, he
know,
has the gumption to
Golden
take
State
that
took
shot.
back the
I think he
Jefferson
has a little
contract. It's a
toughness. But yeah,
terrible deal.
Josh
That
Howard's
first
been
round
my X
pick,
factor.
it's
They put
kind
him
of the
into the
direction
starting
they
lineup.
need
They
to
took
go.
DeMarre Carroll out. They limited DeMarre Carroll's offense. Or no,
The
they
Spurs now
limited
with
his
Jackson are a
availability because
way
they stuck
better
him in that
team than
second
they
unit.
would
The
be
second unit
without
didn't
him.
really have
And I
anyone who could
also want to
score.
shout out one
Josh
guy from
Howard's
Twitter,
forcing up shots in an
Sean
offense
in
that
the
was more
Flesh,
free
at
flowing.
Sean in the Flesh. Sean
It
has just
really
been
kind of
a diehard
hurt him. I
Spurs
didn't
fan.
like that adjustment by
And
Ty Corbin. Didn't think they would
I'm
ever
not
win
gonna
the
lie, I
series, but
haven't
it
seen
really
all these
kind of
games through, and
limited their
he's been
chance. Came
tweeting
out
those games from
early, played
beginning
well,
to
but
end,
once San Antonio put it on
just
them,
trying to
they
get
were
the
already hurt
Spurs some love,
by
and
their
everybody's been
rotation,
ignoring him.
and they
So
were
I have to
hurt
give him
by
a shout there because he's
the
the only
intimidation
guy
of
out
them
here just
because San
tweeting these
Antonio was
Spurs
just
game
that
as
much
Manu
better than them.
hits a three to put him up 30,
From this series
like
forward, we're
it's
going to go
nothing.
to
I mean, he has to enjoy it,
Los
so that's my
Angeles
shout out to
and the
him.
Clippers and the Grizzlies. And this series has been crazy, to say the least. I don't even know how to describe this. So we're going to go ahead and get your thoughts on the past of this series and going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Two
that first game was
overtimes.
huge.
One game was
Was it
until
a
like
20,
2 o'clock in the
27 to
morning.
3 run
I mean,
that the
I picked
Clippers
Memphis to
tamed
win the
that
series,
game?
and I was thinking simple.
That
Memphis is
really
going to
kind
just
of
put
was a punch to the gut
Tony
for
Allen, Tony
the
Douglas,
Grizzlies, I
Tony
think. And
Allen,
the Clippers is out tough.
Tony Allen, and
Word out tough.
Mike Conley
They've
on
out
Chris Paul, and just
Grizzlies are
try to
known for.
contain him, and that would at least
And
limit
like you
him
talked about, we
early.
figured that
So
Conley and Allen and even a little
the
bit of OJ
fact that
Mayo
he's going to
would
score
help
late doesn't
Chris
become
Paul
anything.
contained, but Chris Paul's done what he's wanted for the most
Man,
part in this series.
it's not working.
You know, they threw Tony Allen
Quietly,
in
I
this last
think a
game,
couple of
and
people
it
are
was a
getting
blast
exposed. I think
watch.
Karan Butler is showing
Chris
himself
Paul
to
eat
be a
up
tough
Tony Allen.
dude. His nickname is Tough
You don't expect
Juice.
it. You
I
throw
think he
Tony Allen
broke
on
his
somebody
hand
and
and
you
came
expect them to
back
get
after
shut down.
game
Didn't
one.
happen with Chris Paul.
Rudy
Yeah,
Gay
that
has been
last
one
play
of
of the
these
game,
guys who I felt
last play
like,
of regulation where Chris Paul slipped.
I don't know.
And that was the
It
closest
comes
thing
to a
you could
point
say
where it's
to
just like the
Tony Allen
contract.
shut Paul. It didn't happen.
He got overpaid,
I'll
but
be
it's just
interested
like
to see
at
him
that
going forward
age,
here if they stick with that
what is
mentality
overpaying?
that he kind of brought to them. Like you talked about Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay the other day had 22 shots and 19 points.
Zach
That's not
Randolph
the
has
kind of
been
offense
confusing.
that they went through
Marcus
last year.
Sol
They
has
played
been
through the
very
push. They
confusing.
bodied up
For the
inside.
simple fact that he's
They're
not
looking
putting
to
his
take
back to the
advantage
basket
of Blake from
anymore.
down low at all.
I feel like
Debo's not
the
sharing with
Clippers, in a sense, have
Gasol's
taken Memphis out of
kind of
their
playing like a
game.
pansy, no
And
offense,
that
Mark,
game one,
but
disaster
they're
for
not
Memphis
playing
really
the
hurt
same way
them.
that
Because
they
I
did
think they
last year.
feel
They're a
like
little
that
more
was
selfish,
the game.
and
That
if
was
they
the
don't get
game
it
that was going to
together,
dictate the tempo.
this
And the
great play
Clippers
by Mike Conley is going to be
punched
pretty much
back,
wasted.
and Memphis hasn't been able to
So,
recover.
who's been your X factor for this series and going forward here?
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that. Reggie Evans has been huge. He's just been like a bully. He's went out there and bullied Memphis. You don't expect that to happen to Memphis ever, but Reggie Evans has come in and done that. The flopping does get old. It does get annoying, but the Clippers are trying to win. You watch Marc Gasol drive to the lane. Anytime he gets bumped, you see that head fly back. Griffin does the same exact thing. It's just kind of we're disappointed in how he goes about it. He flails a little too much. It's a little too emphatic. C-Web called him out for it. But for me, they're still trying to win. If they weren't doing everything to try to win, we'd be bashing them. So you've got your give, you got your take here. My X factor's been Vinny Del Negro. He's basically let Chris Paul do whatever he wants, and he's gotten lucky. He hasn't gotten in his own way. So you can't really come out here and blame Vinny Del Negro
Reggie Evans
for the Clippers doing anything, which surprises all of us. Gonna go ahead to the last series. The winner is going to play Oklahoma City.
Last
We got
season
Los Angeles
in the
and
league.
Denver.
And he was just sitting there.
I don't even know if this has been a fun
waiting
series
to be taken, and the Clippers
watch,
took
it's
him.
been a fun
and I just
series
feel
to
like
kinda
he's
cover.
been an X factor for like the past 2 or 3
Nephew.
seasons. To get him on this team, and now you have to grind it out, and you have Blake, who sort of he's not soft. He just flops a lot, and it's just like it annoys me to no end. And you have a guy like Reggie Evans who's just like, I'm just gonna push Zach Randolph. I'm gonna flop too, and I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it, worldwide. And I'm just flopping. And everybody's gonna know it's gonna be the worst flop ever.
Is it the one he got hit
And
on
it's just like
the screen?
DeAndre Jordan. I don't know.
The second one, I think he just kind of that one was. I didn't like it because there was no chance
you play
he was
Reggie Evans, you play Kenyon
and he
Martin,
down on the ground, and it basically
Griffin,
gave them a 5-on-4. So it kind of just punished himself.
I feel like he's
been
an X factor for them this series, because without him, I don't think they win this series. I don't think they're up 3-1 at least. First of all, before we even talk about the gameplay, good God, Danilo Gallinari. This guy flops not once. The first flop, the pick on Powell, wasn't even the worst one. There's one on, I want to say, the Blake Sessions hit a 3 in the corner.
They can both kind of be passive. They can both kind of just say, man, whatever.
It was the first flop I ever saw, which I felt like it should be worth a suspension. It was that bad. It was
Denver
that bad.
Really isn't the Denver that we
for the
saw
most part,
season. They attack the basket. They knock down open shots. They're not really knocking down
Yeah.
open shots. Gallinari is not
Yes.
shooting anywhere close to what he was during his rookie season, and that really kind of limits his game. When he's able to shoot as well as he's capable of, it
Yeah.
opens up driving lanes. He's able to attack. If he doesn't get to the rim, then he can kick out to other shooters. That's really
It,
kind of hampered
it
Denver.
was just
But LA seems to be
for the
kind of
most part.
grooving right now. I don't know if
It's
they're
weird
they would
because the
legitimately
Lakers
tank to
have
get
all that
Artest back.
size, and even
It makes
Jordan
sense.
Hill, I think, is
I
6'10",
think
but
Mike
he's
Brown
been able
actually
to
in an
just
interview today said that they were tanking
be
to make sure. Hey,
be
would you
taller,
ever,
be bigger near
want to lose a playoff game? You want to get this done. You want to have your rest. You don't
over a
want
guy
anything
like
to
Kenneth
happen that could
Farid.
hurt your
But
chances.
JaVale McGee
But
is
then
somebody
again,
who
you want
giving
Artest back.
Bynum
You're
a
playing
tough
against
time.
Kevin
He's an
Durant, the scoring
athletic big,
champion.
and if he
Ebanks has done a
can
nice job
open
on him,
up,
but if you
at
don't
least the
really trust
paint
Evan Ebanks to play
for a
that
guy
much,
like Lawson on a
you
cut,
got Matt Barnes,
or
but then you got other
a
scorers on
cut
the
for
floor.
Lawson,
Having
at least a
Artest is
pass
another
to
option,
a
and you don't want to
Gallinari for
not have
three.
that in game
He's
one
been
in a
able to
more
be,
courts game.
not the
Going
player
forward, I
that they
kind of expect
signify the
LA
offense
to
through, but
come
somebody who
through
they can pass the
and say,
ball
okay,
to.
enough's
And
enough,
he's either going to get
and
free
just shut it
throws or he's
down
going
and take it
to,
home.
he's going to
Who's
get a
been your X
basket.
factor so
I think
far
Andre
for
Miller's
the
quietly been a
series?
huge factor for them too. They don't have the Nuggets don't have a leader, and he's been able to take over. He took over at least the last game, and I feel like Denver tanking, but they're like resting a little bit because they want Artest back for the next round. I don't think you can go a game without Artest next round against Oklahoma City. I feel like this game 6 is going to be a Lakers blowout. They could win by 15 or 20 just because of Pau Gasol. If he shows up, I think they can easily win that game. The issue for him is just sometimes he's so soft, and I don't understand why he plays in that passive way where it's just like
Yeah, I think the Sixers
rebounds
really
are
gave them an edge. I
not
mentioned Kenneth
got
Farid's a
not
guy
grabbed at
that's really been
100%.
huge. I
He's
think
lazy
Sebastian Trudy
sometimes
did
on the
a piece
defensive end.
today
His
on how him
passes
just
get a little
running to the
lazy.
rim
He's
has
not
really
looking for
kind of
shots. Like
taken
sometimes he's
and
the
they did a
best big
lot
man on the
last
court, and
night. The
sometimes
inputs
he's
mistakes
just
has been huge.
passive.
But for
I
me, Pam
think
McGee's
the
been
Lakers are
the
going to
X
win
factor.
win in
She's
6,
shown up and
but
she mugged
you
everyone in
need
the
Artest
building,
back, and you need to
including your
push
son
Pau Gasol a
Giselle,
little
who's
bit more.
apparently earned himself a whole lot more money by playing 2 games really solidly, which, we knew he could play solidly, but he's coming out there in big games, in playoffs, doing it against the biggest front line in all of basketball, and really having some solid effects. So yeah, that's my X factor. I think this next segment, Q is going to come out, and he's got an over-under series that he wants to go through about some potential NBA free agents. Now, do you want the contract to be what I think he will sign or what he should sign? What would be a good value?
Ramon
I think
Sessions.
that it's
I
going to
feel like
be
Ramon
under
Sessions
what he
at
does
times
sign
just
for. I
kicks it
think he's
into
going to
another
go for a
gear.
little bit over
And
what
at other
DeAndre
times, he just
Jordan's
shows you
making
why
right
he
now.
was
You
available
look
for
at
Luke Walton in
Jordan's
the first round
abilities,
pick.
what he brings to the court, and McGee's really kind of similar. He can go up, he can dunk the ball, he can protect the
To
rim
point
for
guard.
you. And teams
I
kind of
don't
need
know.
that.
I just
So
feel like he's somebody
someone
who's
that's looking for a
going to be the
guy,
key for
say
the
Portland,
Lakers
come
to
in
get
there
at
and be
least
their
this
rim
game
protector,
6.
maybe change the culture a little bit,
Lawson
something
is,
like.
since
I
that
think
game
I
1
would
debacle,
probably
he's been
stick
playing
to,
pretty decently.
DeAndre
I
Jordan got
think that
overpaid a little
Sessions is
bit. So
somebody
if
that's
you can
going
get
to
him
have
at
to
9
up
mil
his
per,
game a little
that's
bit, or at
really
least cut
that's
down
that's
on
perfect price right there. But
the
in an
poor
open market, I
decision
think that's really
making
going to drive
in
him up
order to be
to
somebody
probably
who
around
can
11,
be
11 and
a
a half.
factor to close out Denver and to at least get a close series with Oklahoma City.
I think his value is probably somewhere around 9. I think if someone gets him for 11, that's going to be good. But I think someone might end up going about 12.5 to try to get him. There's a lot of teams that have money, and if you look at McGee, watch his skill set, his body. He's the type of player that you go, oh my goodness, what is this? I mean, like, where did he come from? He's able to run the
Yeah, I
floor.
have a
He's
couple
long.
of free
He's seven
agents
foot
here.
tall, and he can jump,
It's
and
an
he's long.
interesting
This
free
guy,
agent
he
period.
said
I feel like there's a whole bunch of guys
he's
who
you
could
kind of
get
had his
a
antics.
couple
You
of
know, he still
wild
had the antics
contracts. I
last night.
also
He
feel
threw
like
the
there's a
ball into
couple
the
of
crowd.
guys
I know
that
that's something that some people do, but
well, nice
when you
contracts. I
and
think
he's got all
this is
the
the
highlight
first year
tape and
off the
stupid things, but
lockout.
he's got
A
really got
couple
to
of
be in
teams
the
have
right
some dollars,
situation
and
if
I
he's going
feel
to live
like
up to a contract.
there's
And I
going to
think in
be
this
a
open
little
market,
bit
it's
of
going to be
demand.
really
There's
tough
going
for
to
him.
be
He's got to be in the right
more
situation.
demand than I think people think. I feel like teams like Cleveland and Sacramento are going to look and try to get a, try to get the scraps or try to find the gems in this free agent class. And I do think there's a couple of
Exactly.
gems. And I just wanted to run through some over unders. I picked 6 players, and I looked at their current contracts. I looked at their age, and I also looked at how they're playing now. And I picked out a contract for them, and I want to see if you agree, if you go over, if you go under. For his contract this
I
offseason.
think he's going out of Milwaukee. That's for sure. He doesn't want to be there, and they're okay with him not wanting to be there because they've got 8,000
You
power
can
forwards on that roster
you can
anyway.
go over or
Um,
under.
four
Go
years,
over or under if
33
you think it's
million.
too much, too
That's
little, and then you could give us what you think
over
he
8
should
million
sign
per
for.
off of one good year. Granted, it's been a solid year. I just think it's going to be tough to find a team that will pay that, unless you look at say Sacramento in the draft. If they go MKG in the draft, they're going to need someone to space the floor, and Ilyasova will fit that. Um, I think if you can get him for 7, that's probably the right price. Who gets involved? 34 for 33 is a little much, I think. But at the same time, you look at this contract year, and there aren't a lot of guys that are fours that can space the floor that are going to be available. Ryan Anderson, you're going to have to make enough of a deal to bring him in because he's on a restricted contract. So 433 is just a little much. 430, I could do that.
Okay. Um, I think the biggest thing for McGee is his age. The fact that there's not a lot of centers who can run the floor like him, who could who could dunk like him. To be honest with you, plus I think he's kind of getting it. You don't want to. The toughest thing for me is he's been a knucklehead, and now he's going to get paid. So what is he going to be? I just feel like he's size. It's rare in the league. I kind of think Roy Hibbert's going to get the same kind of look and treatment. That's why I don't understand the Indiana Eric Gordon situation. I feel like McGee's going to get a nice contract. What do you think he should sign for?
If your KG wants to go back to Boston, if you can bring him back for 5 a year, you can work with that. You got to remember they got Jeff Green coming back with qualifying offers at $7.2 million. They want to bring him back. Yes, they have space because Allen's leaving. They don't really have, and KG's 19.2 million is coming off the books. But I
All
think
right, I
he
agree with
wants
you
to be
there.
able to be a shooter in
I
free
think nine.
agency.
I
I'm
think I
sure
had
he
it at
loves a guy like Batum. That just
436
makes sense.
originally,
I
and
toyed with the
that big
idea
man
of
bump, you
New
bump it
York
up a
fans
little
say they
bit,
want
so you
Amari
got the
out of
yeah.
town. If Boston can say, okay, we'll give
Speaking
you
of
Avery
bump, I
Bradley
think
and a
the
first
next
round
guy
pick
is
for
really
Amari,
interesting.
what
I
happens to
feel like
Boston then? Amari likely to
his
do it,
price tag has
but
been
KG, I
kind
think
of
it's more
odd.
sentimental now than it's about money. KG's made plenty of money. It's gonna be something that's respectable. That
Milwaukee
he's
Bucks.
not
I
making
think the
chump
Bucks
change,
are
especially when
gonna
there's
do the whole low
availability. I think
ball to say
overpaying
that
him
we
is just
offered a
something that Ainge
contract
isn't
for
willing
him
to do.
because you bring in FK Udo. I think his days are numbered in Milwaukee. I settled at 4 years, $33 million for Ersan Ilyasova. Do you think that's too much, too little? What do you think?
I think for the right team, he is. He'll come in and he'll change your culture. That's the biggest thing. If Sacramento again, I'll use Sacramento again.
I
If
certainly
they've
agree
got guys
there.
that are young,
I think it's interesting
if he can
because
come into that locker
in the
room
league.
and change that atmosphere, he's worth all the money you can throw at him. You can take DeMarcus Cousins and have him learn from Kevin Garnett, and you're golden. It's worth all the money you can give him.
And it's just like
You look
you use the
at
rest of that
Dallas.
money to build a
If
team.
Dallas
Like,
has the cap
is
room to bring in
Ersan
Darren Williams
Ilyas?
and a
Could
little
you
bit
win a
extra,
championship
that's a
with
perfect.
Ersan
KG is pretty much
Ilyasova
a
as your
perfect
fourth
fit
best
anywhere you
player?
can find him.
Like right
I
now,
think
I don't know.
Ainge really cares about sentimental
I
factors. He
have
doesn't
my
care
doubts
that
about that, but I
That
do
they
think
should
a
have broke
team is
up
going to
Fred
look at him and
McHale.
say
That
he's worth
they could
that
have had
money.
longer success.
And
I don't think he really cares
he
about
shot like
that. I
45%
think
from
he'll
three.
gladly bring him
He gets
back,
rebounds.
but
He
he's not going
plays
to
tough. But he's
overpay
also
his
one of these
value. For
guys that
some
had like a
teams,
good game
the
against the
value
Knicks,
goes
like
beyond
Amare.
money,
And it's just
and
like I
it
watch him
becomes
play, and I feel like
a
a
teach
lot of
experience,
it's
something for
hustle,
down the
and it's
road
just like
that could really be
it's
a big
hustle,
plus.
but it's hustle against a guy with two bad legs, and it's just like I don't know if he's a really really good player because Milwaukee limited him, but he's worth the risk. He's a young dude. I think he's like 24 years old. So 4 years, 7, 8 is probably a decent amount for him. Um, I want to take you to the next guy. I think he's interesting. He's a defensive player of the year candidate. Excuse me. A NBA champion. Little bit of a guy who's
Uh,
been a little bit of an enigma in his career. He's
that, of
been
course,
questioned
that'd
for
be
his
awesome. I
toughness, but
think
he's
their
played
biggest
really
need right
well.
now is going to
We
be
spoke
a
about him
starting
earlier,
shooting guard.
Kevin Garnett.
You can't go out there with
Um,
Randy Foy and really expect to win a
I
title.
don't
And in my
know
opinion,
where he would
Swaggy P's
land,
been
but
awesome.
I
Nick
do think
Young.
there's a whole bunch of teams that's
But at the same
interested in him. I
time, I
think
don't
that he's
expect
still
him to go
somebody who
out there
can
and win a
play the
title. Plus, I
game.
think he's a free agent as well,
He's
so
still a
he's going to
starter.
want to get paid. I really
I
think
was
that's where
thinking
Ray
two
Allen ends up
years,
at.
15 million for
So it'd be
Kevin
kind of
Garnett. Is that too
interesting
much? Too
if Ray
little?
goes there
What
and,
do you
hey,
think?
KG, come on, we're going to win a title with CP3. You know, that could be something to really look at. He's going to have to take less money. And Tom Thibodeau says, hey, KG, come on to Chicago. We're going to win a title. That's a possibility. You go there, and if they lose a Sheik, you've got Garnett. If they amnesty Boozer, you've got Garnett. If Popovich calls him up, and you have Duncan and Garnett playing side by side because they're free agents, both pay them a small amount of money to be the potential greatest pairing of bigs ever. I mean, I'm hyperbole a little bit maybe, but still, anywhere KG goes is going to be he's going to be wanted. And so it's if he wants money, he can go to one of those small teams. I think it's going to be something that he wants to win a ring. That's KG. He just wants to win. And it's either going to be that or it's going to be sentimental for me and going back to Boston. I think it'd be a good way to go out. I think he still loves to play the game, though. I think winning would make it easier for him to say, okay, it's my time to go. And that way he can end on it. Because he seems that kind of cerebral guy. But he still loves to play. So at the same time, he might be down for one more go. I think if the bigger factor is if they win
Here's
this one,
here's my
does
thing, and
Popovich
this is
stay?
why
If
I
Popovich stays,
I do think he's worth
Duncan,
7.
I think
I give him
he's more likely
7,
to stay.
and I do agree with you that Danny Ainge is going to lowball him, and I just think it's the wrong move. I think if you're Ainge, you got to give him that money. Without him, you don't win that championship. You don't
I know
become what you are
we haven't
now.
said
You know,
anything.
the Ray
There's
Allen
been no
move
rumors
at the
about
time, at
Pop
least
wanting to
the
leave.
way I
He
looked
just
at it
took
was,
him and the
you're
big leagues, and
making
they
this
went back
move
for,
and you just
I don't
made
know if it
yourself.
was health concerns or what. So there may be something there. I don't want to speculate, but actually I did speculate. Whatever.
Then they made the Perkins trade. I just wonder if there's a team out there who looks at Kevin Garnett and says, let's get Garnett and try to build a team that can challenge for a championship. And the one team I think that could look at Kevin Garnett and provide him that, if Darren Williams does return, is the Brooklyn Nets. You have Brook Lopez there, who they kind of have to sign this year as well, which is interesting. You know, you can probably bring
Closer
Humphreys
to six,
back.
seven.
He's an interesting contract. You have Brooks, you have Wallace. I think it's interesting for the Nets if Garnett looks at that.
I
Up
mean,
for
if you're the
Garnett.
Cavs, you'll take it.
And I
Instantly.
do agree that
That's
Ainge is going
$5
to
million price
lowball him.
range.
I just hope
You look at
that
a
he
Sheik
gets.
and a
I
Sheik.
think he's worth the 7, though. Do we at
Would you
least
rather have
agree
a
he's
Sheik
worth
or
the
Kenneth
7?
Perkins for the next 4 years? And you're getting for two men cheaper basically. So I don't like his hands. He has terrible hands. Their hands are legendarily bad. They're Jared Jeffries bad. And so you don't really. Yeah, I like overs a lot. I like the fact that if you bring him in, you give them someone to protect the paint. Varejão's a good defender. But he can also move his feet and play on the perimeter. It gives them almost a Noah, a Sheik type look. Thompson, I still like him even though he's a little undersized. He's long arms. He's active. But if they bring in a Sheik, that means that they don't have to draft someone like Andre Drummond, which I kind of, in my current mock draft, I have them taking Drummond at 3rd. I know there are guys that could come in there and probably have a little more impact right now, but in terms of futureness, you look at Derek Favors and what he can do. And Drummond really compares favorably to Favors price. That means you have 2 centers for $12 million. Most teams can't say that for one. You look and he's making 11. You have to bring in a guy that's a minimum player.
And this just hit me. It would make a lot. I don't think he cares about another.
Really good fit
he
right
probably
there.
does
If
care
Cleveland
about
can give
another
that,
ring.
they'll take it.
But imagine him going to the Clippers and just saying, "I'll play 25 minutes a game. Let Blake and
If I'm Bulls,
DeAndre
I
do
probably
their thing. I'm
would,
just gonna be
but you
the
got to be
3rd
careful. They're
big.
really close to the cap.
You
They,
know, I
they've
don't care
got,
about a ring. I get to play with Chris Paul. I'm in LA. You know,
Boozer amnesty. That's all in play for me. I really think they probably should. Maybe after next year. So that you could.
I was
bring
Garnett. I would heavily look at that, even though I think
But
that's
Ronnie
like
Brewer,
the
that's what I was
mid-level.
thinking. Ronnie Brewer.
And I don't think the
isn't
Clippers
on a
have
guaranteed contract.
full mid-level. I think they
So
have
you
that
could get
mini
rid of Ronnie.
mid-level.
Go ahead and sit down, play Butler. You're going to need him down the road.
What do you think?
But yeah, bringing him back at 5 isn't bad. I don't think. Then you have a 3. Then you have Noah and a Sheik, and bringing back Gibson next year is going to be the thing for me though. If you're another team, you want Taj Gibson. He's able to play defense on the perimeter. He doesn't hurt you inside. He's a guy that you want to get him for that 7, 8, 9 range. Go after him. And so that's why I think that the amnesty booster has to affect sometime soon because you can't keep all four of them and be a contender and stay out of the luxury tax. Plus, they have a guy, Nikola Mirotic, over in Spain right now, top 10 talent in the last draft, current contract situation with Real Madrid. He's not coming over, really can stretch the floor. You know, we haven't seen him look in the NBA, but we've seen a lot of these top tier guys come over and be plenty effective. So if they put him in an environment, that's something that to watch for. I think the biggest thing with Boozer is you're not bringing back Gasol with him unless you put together a package with more players going there. He's not on a. Can you?
Speaking
You
of
can swing
Duncan,
him
do you
for if
think
you're
the
willing to swing him
Spurs?
for something
Do you
lower
think Duncan
value.
retires?
That should probably be in play. You don't have to pay him the extra money in the amnesty, and I'm not saying amnesty him this next year. Even it's going to be down the road that you amnesty him. But I would trade him for something small as opposed to just amnestying. Kind of like the Lamar Odom situation. I talked about this early in the year. You don't just say, okay, bye bye Lamar Odom. You say, okay, we'll send you somewhere for value, and then they can choose what they want to do with you for those last year.
All right, I think that's one of the undertones that we may get to hear more when the finals, as the finals loom, and if the Spurs are in the finals. But I want to go. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. The next guy I want to look at is Omar Sheik. I mean, a young big. It's weird because I thought he was on that same boat as Mozgov
First round draft pick that's
and
guaranteed to be
Samir
in the
Dan. Is
lottery.
these
It
just
is top three
big
protected. But
international
Jared
dudes that
Wallace,
are
who
just
has a player
big.
option
You
to
know,
opt
even
out
though
of his
Mozgov is
contract,
a little bit more
he's only
athletic,
making 9.6 next year, I
Cleveland
think. If he
has
stays
been
in,
really
he
interested
could
in this
probably get
guy,
that on the
and I
open
like the
market.
fit for
So
them. I think that again that
that's
high
kind
low
of tough
game.
for
If he
me. But
runs
if they
that with
bring in
Thompson, I
Odom
feel like
and
that can
they
help
bring back
Thompson better at the
Lopez,
rim.
and
I think
you
Thompson's a little
have
bit
you
smaller.
have
He's
Wallace,
closer
you
to
kind of
6'8"
make
and
up
6'9",
for
and you get a guy like it
Lopez's rebounding
closer to six
inefficiencies.
seven.
Um,
You,
Odom can kind of handle the ball. Wallace can, play a little bit of the floor. It's really creates some unique matchups that would be really
at
interesting.
least from
Plus,
what I saw, so
if
he
you're
can get some
Brooklyn
dunks
and
and maybe get
you're
some more
moving
free
into
throws.
Brooklyn,
Even though
you
the
want
at
somebody to
rim
put on
numbers
those
will never be
billboards.
as good as people want them to be,
They may look
I
at.
look at Omar Sheik
But
and I
yeah, I think he's
say to pry
8.9
him away
looking to
from the
point one.
Bulls,
It's
the
not a bad contract. That was the
Cavaliers
biggest thing
are
for
going
LA.
to
They had him
offer
on a good
4
contract. He wanted to
years,
be there. Uh,
$23 million.
if Lamar can come in and play like we all know he's
What do
capable
you
of,
think?
it's a huge boom, and it's worth the risk for somebody. If you just have to give up a draft pick for a guy that can possibly win you a title, that isn't a huge risk. He, like you said, he's done after this year, or you just
Sheik.
like it and you can bring him back. So it's
A
something
Sheik.
that I think it's worth doing. It was worth doing on Dallas's part. Definitely, Dallas, could come out, looking like geniuses for this move.
Uh,
But yeah, totally worth doing. I think there's a lot of possibilities, like you talked about. There could be a Josh Smith trade. There's a lot of things that we can look at. We just haven't had time to because we went from.
yeah.
I'd rather have Jason Terry. Really, honestly, I'd rather have Jason Terry. Some team's gonna go out and pay Lou Williams because he's able to close ball games for you and he's young, but Terry's had experience. It's a cheaper contract. You'd rather do that. I think Dallas is gonna bring him back only on probably a 1 year deal maybe. That they've become really kind of fans of keeping their options open.
For the Bulls,
But
do
if
you
look
match
at
that?
Jamal Crawford,
You would match
I think
that, right?
that's going to be a similar contract to what Terry gets. Crawford's going to opt out this. He had the 2 year, $10 million. Really boils down to who loses out on that. Someone does go ahead and give him that mid level and says, okay,
Loser.
we'll give you 4 years, 21, and he takes that. Definitely. I think that's probably a pretty decent price range. You come in and you got a guy that can be a lockdown defender, a little less than $7 million a year. Probably starts off at around 6 and escalates up a little bit. Uh, so no, that's not terrible. You throw a team like New York doesn't have the salary to move him unless they get rid of Amari, but he can put guys that bring stuff for fantasy players out there. Multi-category type guys that can do a lot of
And
things.
I certainly agree with everything you said. I think the Bulls
it makes
would
sense
bring him
that
back
someone
and
would
try
do
to
it.
keep him, and
I
then
haven't
consider
looked at who
Boozer.
really would be an
I don't.
option for
I
it
think
yet.
it's Boozer's trade value is interesting. I don't
But
think he
yeah,
has as
definitely.
much as people want to believe he does. So I saw a Bulls fan say he's the key to a Pau Gasol trade, and I was just like, you gotta slow down. You know, um,
Yeah, you look at it and you're gonna someone's not gonna draft a kid,
yeah.
the Michael Kidd Gilchrist. It's gonna want a guy that brings some of his abilities, and that's what Kirilenko kind of does for you. If you can get his veteran abilities, on a cheap price, someone's gonna do it. I don't think they're gonna overpay him, and I think that's the reason why he ended up in Russia. No one was willing to overpay him. But yeah, he could definitely be a solid piece. I think Vujic is going to be a little
Man, I
tougher
want to speak about that
to
Lamar Odom
gauge.
contract. You
Whoever
just look
was
at all the
pulling
teams
Rockets
that are
definitely is
kind
not
of
gonna,
close to the
which is
cap.
really why he ended up having to be moved.
The Mavericks are in a perfect spot
And
right now to rip somebody
he's
off. Like, it's very.
been effective
There's
at
a
times, but
chance.
at the same time, it's you kind of got to look at who he is on the floor with. Did that up his numbers? With the new CBA, we talked about what you talked about.
But
You
like
can
he's
have
like
three max
2.1
guys,
million.
or
I think he's 2.1 this year.
once you
But
start
you
getting
can
into
release
to
him
that
for like
factor, three max
3.2
guys
million.
plus a mid level
And it's
or
just
two,
like the Atlanta
and you're at the
Hawks right
cap,
now are
or
just
you can
admitting
go with the
defeat.
theory
I
where
think
you
Josh
have
Smith is
a
going to be
max level
gone.
guy or two max
Everybody's
level
saying he's
guys,
going
and
to
then
be
you're
traded
having
in the
guys
summer.
to even
Like
out, which
that
is kind
Lamar
of the
Odom
Denver
contract,
philosophy that we've
at
seen
least
here. Um,
for
but yeah,
anything, is a
so
10.1 million
Vujicic might,
expiring
if he gets
contract.
3.5,
You can
that's going to
easily
be
get rid of
terrific
him.
for him. But I
And I
wouldn't
think
expect
that
anything
trade, that
over
piece
two
has
for him.
value
We're
because
gonna
if
go ahead
Odom
and
is
swap over
serious
to
about
the
coming
the
back,
swag rankings.
like
We're gonna try.
he's still
Yeah,
one of the top 6 men in the league if he gets everything together. I think that's something that nobody's talking about, but I think it's underrated
rank
how
him
much
whatever you
that
want to
contract.
rank. If you want, I'll go ahead and I'll start off the rankings. And number 5, I got Chris Webber. Chris Webber's been killing it He's been terrific. Plus, he hasn't been Reggie Miller and he hasn't been Steve Kerr, so he's automatically makes the list. Number 4, I got the Avengers because there's no NBA talk allowed without the Avengers being involved. If you watch the game, you're going to see the Avengers. If you get on Twitter, you're going to see the Avengers. Why not here? Number 3, Swaggy P's shirt. Did anyone see him in that post-game press conference? Definition of Swaggy P. Did you see him in game 1 just knocking down ridiculous threes? Swaggy P. Swaggy P's shirt definitely deserves to be number 3. All sorts of money, not playing in the fourth quarter, dunking on Tony Allen. Tony Allen talking about he's going to have to shave his head because he got dunked on so hard. DeAndre Jordan is just swagging. Number 1 is Greg Oden. I gotta throw him out there. Mark Titus's piece. Gotta give a shout out to Greg and Mark.
Yes.
That Club Trillion, that was everyone was talking about it. We all wish Greg Oden a speedy recovery and hope that he can get back to at least some semblance of what he thought he could be. All right, Q.
And speaking of the Dallas Mavericks, I want to get into the next free agent, and that's Jason Terry. I think that at this point in his career, he's a good off-the-bench guy. I don't know if Dallas wants to bring him back. I would assume like 210 is his price range. I went with 214, similar to the KG contract. I think a team just looks at him as a spark off the bench, someone that's going to put up a nice amount of points and going to be able to help the second unit. And I want to give it a caveat with this as well, is that you look at this Jason Terry contract and you have to figure in that Lou Williams is also going to be a pending free agent as well. For 2 years, $11 million, or would you rather have Lou Williams for say 4 years, $27 million? I agree. Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think Lou Williams is going to be
Have really disliked
paid a
that.
nice
But I think a lot of
chunk
people
of
missed that right
change.
after that. He said it was
And
okay
then I
to sell
think
the
Jason, I
call.
think it's going to be
That Blake was just overdoing
Williams,
it. So I
Terry,
think
then
we got to be
Crawford,
careful
just
because
because Crawford had a terrible
Floppin's
season.
getting a little bit of a
I
bad
do
rap,
think it's
but at the
interesting
same
that Jason
time,
Terry's hitting
Floppin's
this free
considered to be
agency
okay
period.
because you're the right thing.
I
I
don't
know a lot
know.
of people
Again, I
feel
think it's
strongly
like the
on that, so
KG
I'm
situation
gonna
where
leave it
one of
alone
these
from there.
teams that
Just
feel like
try
they're a
not to
piece
offend
away
people
adds
until
Terry
later,
and
but
try to sell it to the
whatever.
fans that,
Uh,
okay, we're
my
right
final
there. Now
question
we're
for the night,
serious
I'm gonna
about
go ahead
it.
and I'll throw it
And I
out
think
here.
it's going to be a Western Conference
Should
team which is
LeBron
going
have been
to
sitting in the
shake it
corner?
up there and take
And
Terry I
If
think
not,
I wouldn't be
what should
surprised
he
if
have
Lou
done?
Williams went back to Philly and Crawford. It remains to be seen, but it all sounds like he wants to be a Phoenix. And that's Andre Karolinko. He, resurfaced the past couple of days, being rumored to sign with the New Jersey Nets. That's proven to be false. He still very well may go to the Nets, because he's familiar with Prokhorov. Um, is 3 years, 20 million too much for Andre Karolinko?
Uh, Chris Bosh is just fine catching and shooting. There's no problem with that. So if you don't have one of those two options, you can kick it to him.
I
You've got
wish.
Mike Miller, who shoots really well. I don't care if you don't like Mike Miller or not. You look at his stats and he shoots well. Battier's an assassin from the corner three. You got Chalmers who's hit big shots. If you stick to in a pick and roll, you got to decide who you're guarding. Any slip up and they can attack the basket. That's exactly what you want. You have one of those two being able to attack the basket. You have options. You're not so I know Wade had a chance to get a good shot and just slipped. But if you put those two, it's really impossible to defend. You look at Ray Allen and Paul Pierce. What did they do at the end of games? It's some variation of an Allen and Pierce pick and roll where
I
they a
think
lot of
it's
times they'll
interesting
throw
for
a flare screen
Karolinko
with
and another
Garnett,
guy,
something in
Sasha
there.
Vujacic.
But those two involved in the
Um,
play. And
Sasha's probably going to get a
okay,
lot less. I
we
wouldn't
got
be
a final
surprised if
question
he
here,
got
Q.
a 1 year deal because I think his last run in New Jersey was a little meh. And for Karolinko, I do feel like he's quietly somebody's gem. I think somebody's keeping an eye on him. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Karolinko can man up with most of them, and you bring him in on a nice 3 year contract. I think he's 31 or 32. You're getting those last couple decent defensive years. I think he's worth. I think he's worth the price. So
My biggest thing on small
that's
ball
it
is
for me.
it's a key to winning you a championship, but not your main go to. Um, if you look at the Lakers and you throw Kevin Durant on Pau Gasol, you throw Kevin Durant on Andrew Bynum, and it kind of negates what you're looking for because Oklahoma City does not have four guys on the floor that are going to beat you. You're going to throw Daquan Cook, the guy who never passes up a three. You got Fisher. Gasol can guard Fisher. He can just stand between the paint and 3-point line and just be big. There's no, there's no real threat there versus, what gain by having it. You're getting Durant in foul trouble. I've speculated that he's really more like 7 foot. And he's long. I mean, you look at him and Ibaka, and sometimes he looks taller than Ibaka. So he's big enough, height-wise, length-wise, to play some time at the four, and that's totally okay with me. Westbrook can play the two. He's big enough to play the two, but they don't have a fourth guy I really trust to be out there against someone that can hurt you. So you have to match up for the most part. You have to you say, okay, we can just throw Collison in to bang and help out, or Perkins to bang and help out, or Ibaka to block shots, rather than put himself in a tough situation defensively.
Uh, I don't know. I feel like ranking. What are we ranking this week? Start off. Oh man. Oh man.
You're gonna lose. If you go inside, you can't make your free throws. You're gonna lose. If you're not knocking down shots, you're not gonna win ball games. If they're when that what happens is if they're not knocking down their perimeter shots to make up for things, and they're not attacking the basket, that's when it gets bad. That's when you see if Harden goes down. Harden's one of the elite pick and
I
roll
see how
players in
this
this
goes
game,
now.
able to get to the
I'm
basket,
gonna start off where
and
you
that's just
ended. I think
another
number
option.
5 is Greg Oden. I
Them
feel
having three
bad for the
perimeter
guy.
guys on the
Um,
floor
I'm
that
a
can
owner of a
get
Greg Oden
baskets
jersey,
is their post
so
game for the most
there's
part.
that.
I mean, that's
I
you're
feel
not throwing
bad
it into
for him
Perkins, you're not
because
throwing
it's
it
just
into
like
Ibaka.
you look
Occasionally
at
they
the
do, but
story
that's
of a
not their
kid.
game. So I trust them to close it out as long as they stay aggressive. When they start settling, that's when it gets bad. Yeah, Durant is shot, and we've gotten to the point where
And this guy has been
the hero ball thing that we
he's been
talked
a
about. You want
it's
Durant
been
taking the last
a
shot.
sad
That's what you
tale.
want.
I think people
And
get
if
on
the
him
way
because
you
he's
get Durant
Odin
the ball
and
is
because
Durant the ball
Durant's
being
balling out.
bodied,
But
4 feet
I
beyond
think
the
the
3 point
Mark
line,
Titus
and
piece
he can't
really
get
made us
enough,
take a step
can't get
back
enough
and
space,
realize
that's
like
the shot you're
this
gonna
guy's been
get.
through a lot since he's
Sometimes he's
jumped
just
into
not
the
strong
NBA,
enough to get the
and I just
ball in a
gotta commend
position
him,
that's
and
going to
give
be
him
good
his
for him. You
respect
look at Pierce;
because
he's
I
able
hope
to
he
get
gets
to
back
Melo.
on the court.
He's able to get
I
there.
think it's
Those are the
interesting that he's
reasons
taken
why
another
we
year
consider
off
them
trying to get
great
back
closers.
to this level.
Dirk's
I
the
just
same
hope
way
that he can
because they
come
get
back
to
and
the
be a
spot where
decent
they
player.
close from.
The number
Grant just
four,
kind
my
of has to
number
get to that
four
point.
is Mark Cuban, and that face he made after they got swept. It was hilarious, but it also had a hint of evil genius because I feel like Dallas has set themselves up to be a huge player in free agency. They're 50-50 on Darren Williams. Had like a top 10 defensive season this season. He's one of the top at least 10 or 15 defensive players who played this season. I feel like Mark Cuban quietly with the evil with the anger in that face quietly showed himself to be a genius. And number 3, I think I'm going to give it out to the bloggers. And this is why. And because I feel like the whole hero ball thing has blown up to a point where it's become unrealistic, to a point where we are supposed to feel like every team is supposed to be a well-oiled machine late in games, and the ball is supposed to go to the open man. When realistically, we've knocked Carmelo down to the level of super overrated. When I feel like Melo's a guy who, depending on where you had him to start the season, he may be overrated, he may be really overrated, but I do think that with the ball late, he's one of the top 5 players in the league. And it's unfair to say, well, look at the Spurs when the Spurs have the best coach in the league. So I think that the Wade missed jumper and the whole LeBron should have demanded the ball or Dwayne Wade was going for hero ball, the bloggers, I really do give it up to them, and that's number 3. Number 2, I'm going with what you said at number 5. Chris Webber has been one of the revelations. He's actually on for this Memphis game, which I think is going to go into overtime. Weber has shown his for him to come in and be adaptable to Shaq, to take the backseat to Shaq and to do, on air broadcast and come back off. He's in the studio talking. I think that's impressive. And number 1, I have to say, is Chris Paul. Chris Paul is balled out of his mind, and he's given the Clippers a 3-1 lead. And the Los Angeles Clippers, one of the laughing stocks, are actually considered to be one of the better teams left in the playoffs. It's not conceive. I don't think they're going to, but it's not inconceivable to think that the Clippers can give the Spurs a run for their money. So Chris Paul, the guy who changed the franchise, the guy who came in, set an order, gave you, who's helping Blake Griffin out. I honestly feel like I thought the play was going to be a LeBron pick and roll with Bosh. And if you watch that play again, I think the original call was a Wade pick and roll with Bosh, but Landry jumped hottest player right at that moment. He should be shooting the ball. I feel like the whole corner thing is irrelevant. It's the player with the ball in his hands. And I don't understand the whole Wade should get the ball in his hands if LeBron's your best player. You just put the ball in the best player's hands and you let him go to work. LeBron James, it's either going to be a shot, which is probably going to go in, or it's going to be a foul. So I feel like if they replayed it again, they would probably put the ball in James's hand. I don't think it should have been a Wade's hand at all. I really feel like the corner thing is overblown, but him not having the ball is understandable, and it should be rectified to have LeBron James with the ball late in games. Yeah, I do, and it's about the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it's a question more about Kevin Durant. I feel like long term, the best way for this team to win is more is actually more small ball, and that has Durant at the four, Harden at the three, Westbrook at the four, and Westbrook at the four, Durant at the four, and just making other teams run. Ibaka, Durant isn't the best interior defender, but having a guy like Westbrook in there really just takes a lot out of a team's defense. And I feel like for and how do you feel about Oklahoma City running a small ball offense? I can agree with you. For the playoffs right now. I don't think it's ready, but I do think it's an option, maybe to just run these teams off the court. I feel like Oklahoma City, when they get that lead, I never feel 100% comfortable with it because they shoot a lot of jump shots. And the Lakers game against Oklahoma City when Artest elbowed Harden, to me, was just what I was seeing all season long is that as good as this team is, if they can't shoot the ball, they just struggle to win games. And I've seen a couple of games where teams have come back on them because of their ability to get cold. And I feel like if you put Durant a little bit closer to the basket, he'll score more. I don't know. I think the James Harden thing was so big to me because I feel like I question Kevin Durant's game, and not in the sense that he's a bad game. The fact that his jumper isn't there, the fact that his free throw shooting is suspect at best. For Durant, I just feel like a guy his size who can get as many free throws as he can, like it's arguable that he can get the most free throws other than any player in the game at this point right now. There's no reason why he's shooting these bad jump shots, and I feel like even the game winner against Dallas was like a terrible shot. It's just I think it's more I feel more comfortable with Durant closer to the basket than I do with him out there just shooting jump shots, even though that's his game. That's what his abilities provide for him. I mean, I don't know how. Yeah. All right, I can agree there. I think that's